So there are some differences to consider when you have, especially when you have more than one person.
Okay, so with the management structure of the LLC, you mentioned two: a member managed and a I guess a board directed or a board managed. Is there a third type of management structure for an LLC?
There's a manager managed LLC. So it's another type of management structure where a management is vested in a manager or multiple managers, and they're the ones that can bind the LLC.
Okay, now I'm assuming from how you described that, then, that with a member managed LLC, it sort of is, as far as the member's authority to bind the partner, the LLC, to act on its behalf, is sort of similar to how the partnership operated.
That's correct. For a general partnership, yes.
Okay, and then we're talking about a manager managed or a board managed LLC, director managed LLC, and it sounds like in those situations the control over company governance and decision making authority is more centralized.
That's correct. So with a director managed LLC, it'd be more similar to a corporation that's managed by its directors.
And with the in the context of a director managed LLC, would the directors nominate and appoint officers to act on behalf of the company?
They do. So they would appoint a president, a secretary, they can appoint a treasurer. So there are a number of officers that they can elect to operate for the company.
And now we're talking about this limited liability protection. So explain. So now we're still operating our dog walking business. Mm-hmm. That's a good illustration, I think. And let's say one of us is out walking the dogs, and due to our negligence, it is hit by a car. Who will the dog owner sue then, as far as trying to recover for the damages?
Well, if we've set up our LLC, then the dog owner is going to have to sue the limited liability company. That company shields us personally from liability. So that's one of the advantages of a limited liability company.
And is that limited liability protection, is it absolute, or are there any exceptions to it?
Of course there are exceptions, but they're pretty rare. And it takes a lot in order to get to an LLC member or, for instance, a corporate shareholder in order to hold them liable for actions of the business.
Okay. Now let's say I'm wanting to start a new venture, and I'm going to be the operations guy. I know all the what's required to operate the business. I have knowledge about whatever particular area we plan to engage in, and I plan to bring on a business partner to form an LLC. And I want my business partner sort of be a silent partner. I want him just to invest money in the company for operating capital, and then for us to operate the company and share the proceeds however we agree to. What type of business structure would be appropriate in that circumstance?
Well, you could set up an LLC, and you may want to look at a director managed LLC or a manager managed LLC, so that you can have yourself, have the company elect you, the operations guy, as the manager or director. The other option is you could go ahead and go back to a partnership. You could form a partnership wherein you would be a general partner, you would be the operating partner, so you would be running the day-to-day business, and your investor partner could be a limited partner.
Okay, explain that concept to me.
So you would have, in that instance, it's a limited partnership, and your limited partner has some liability protection in that he is only liable up to his contribution in the business, his investment. So as the operating partner, the general partner, you still have that liability. You don't have the liability protection like you would in an LLC.
And using our dog walking analogy, if you had started that company, that business as a sole proprietorship, and brought me on as an investor, I could come in that circumstance as a limited partner and not have any control over operation of the company.
Right.
And so I would just purely be, I guess, sort of an equity member of that partnership.
You would. It would, you would be an investor in that partnership, and you wouldn't have any operational control. If you did start to operate or try and control the business at all, then you would become actually a general partner, and you would lose that liability protection that you had.
Okay, it's almost time for our first break. We will see you all after the commercials.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. McCune Williams & Ashley PLLC offers a full array of legal services to meet the needs of businesses and individuals. Our attorneys represent diverse backgrounds, interests, and legal emphasis, but we share one common goal: providing the highest quality legal services to our clients through the combination of our talents, experience, and expertise. In each case, we strive to tailor those services to meet each client's specific circumstances. Business law, business organization, civil litigation, commercial litigation, conservatorship and guardian law, bankruptcy law, just to name a few. With over 188 years of combined experience, McCune Williams Ashley PLLC is here to help you and your business succeed. MWALawfirm.com. That's MWALawfirm.com. Call 423-756-6400. That's 423-756-6400.
Is your career careening, maybe sagging, wheezing? Let me suggest a job with huge income potential. Dealing with people. Call Steve Rajeda for a confidential interview. 855-8484. 855-8484. Maybe the most important call you make all year.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appison. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929. There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class, top-notch service and treatment. Because at Alliance Physical Therapy of Chattanooga, we don't just treat the symptoms in your body. Whether you're suffering from stiffness, muscle spasms, back pain, chronic headaches every day, stress of life demanding more and more of you, Alliance Physical Therapy takes a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and soul. Alliance Physical Therapy with a location near you and 9 others in the Chattanooga area. If you don't have a doctor or if your physician's plan for chronic pain is not working, Alliance Physical Therapy will help. Visit Alliance Physical Therapy on the web at nopainpt.com. That's nopainpt.com. Alliance Physical Therapy.
How about we change that to built in the USA? For over 21 years, Affordable Computers has been building computers right here in the good old USA, in Chattanooga, using the highest quality parts and components in every new computer they build. Tell us the exact system you need, we'll build it to your specifications. Or you can choose from a wide selection of our PCs and laptops, starting at under $200. All Affordable Computers are upgradable, guaranteed. Affordable Computers services their computers in store, typically within 1 to 3 days. And when you call, they answer the phone. You get support within minutes that you can understand. Affordable Computers of Chattanooga. And service and support extends for the life of the computer, not just for the warranty of the PC. So there's no reason to shop anywhere else. Call Affordable Computers now on Highway 58 Chattanooga, 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975.
Or visit our Fort O store, 706-858-5888.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. A mail carrier on Tuesday made a grisly discovery in East Ridge, a suicide note inside the mailbox. He called police, and the police found 2 bodies inside the home on Shelby Circle. They're identified as Joseph Yates and Ellen McKenzie. Police are calling it a murder-suicide. The 2 victims were shot to death. In Rocky Face, Georgia, skeletal remains were found in the area off of Gordon Springs Road in Rocky Face, Georgia. And now investigators believe that it may be the body of Gary Wayne Fingerly, who's 59, who went missing from Floyd County, Georgia, back in November of last year. As a black Saturn was screaming down the road on Highway 27, the passengers inside were begging the driver to stop. Police say Mr. Leopard, the driver, didn't stop until one of his tires blew out. The police were chasing him because he didn't pull over for a traffic stop when they were trying to pull him over. Eventually, his tire blew out on 153. His car crashed. The 5 passengers were found and taken to the hospital. The driver was arrested. It was going on in the Tennessee Valley. It's going on Nooga Radio News.
Expect some more clouds, but pleasantly mild weather out there through your afternoon. Highs back into the mid and upper 60s. Tonight, a brief passing shower possible. Not much, though. Lows lower to middle 40s. For Thursday, more sunshine, cooler highs staying into the lower to middle 50s. Continued cool Friday. Check out JCPenney and hurry into the Stretch Your Penny sale. Don't miss your chance to save 25% off select Nike shoes and apparel for the whole family. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Moore.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Welcome back from the commercial break. This is Trevor Ashley.
Katie McGregor.
And we are here for our weekly edition of Legal Bytes on 1240 AM Hot News Talk Radio. If any listeners out there have any questions, please give us a call, 423-800-8949. Now, Katie, before our first break, we have been discussing LLCs and the different management structures of an LLC and the sort of limited liability protection LLC provides for its members. What is are there any, you mentioned to me that you have to file articles of organization. Where are those filed? Or are there any fees associated with that filing?
Well, you file your articles of organization with the Tennessee Secretary of State. They manage all the business entities for the state of Tennessee. So if you're forming any kind of business, a limited liability company, a corporation, a limited partnership, anything like that, then you'll be registering with the Tennessee Secretary of State. The fees for a limited liability company to file those articles of organization, the minimum fee is $300. They charge $50 per member, but there's a minimum fee of $300 up to a maximum of $3,000. So that's your initial filing. And then in order to continue the business, if you're going to continue for several years, however long your business is running, you will have to file an annual report every year that reports the number of members, your principal office, whether you've had any changes with your registered agent, your office, and you have to pay that $300 fee, that minimum $300 up to $3,000 every year. So that's an ongoing registration cost.
Okay, and you mentioned a registered agent, and we had talked before in the context of a sole proprietorship or a general partnership that if we had incurred liability in our dog walking business and one of the dog owners had wanted to recover from us, they would have filed a lawsuit against us individually. If now we're operating under an LLC, and in our illustration, one of the dogs, due to our negligence, is hit by a car and its owner sues us for the damages, how would the person sue the LLC?
Well, the LLC, like I said, has to name a registered agent, and that is a person or an entity that is domiciled in the state where you are forming your business. So if you're forming your business in Tennessee, you'll have to have a Tennessee registered agent, someone that's in the state of Tennessee. And that person's job is to receive service of process on lawsuits, any type of correspondence from the Secretary of State. The registered agent will receive it. And typically government notices, things like that, will come to the registered agent. So, a lot of times when we're setting up a company for a client, they'll name us, the law firm, as their registered agent. So they know that we're taking care of any of those in the event that there are lawsuits or anything like that. They know that we're on top of it since we get notice of it first thing.
Okay. And this concept of the annual reports, are there any type of taxation issues that accompany LLCs?
Well, an LLC can be taxed as either a partnership or a corporation with the federal government. If it's a sole member LLC, they're going to be taxed like a sole proprietorship. It's just a pass-through. If it's more than one member and they don't elect to be taxed as a corporation, then they'll be taxed as a partnership. So the default is a partnership taxation scheme. So they'll be filing that informational return, and then those profits and losses flow through to their members. In Tennessee, there's also franchise and excise tax on a limited liability company and limited partnerships, corporations. They're all required to file with the Department of Revenue, stating that they have started this new business after they form the entity. So that the franchise and excise tax is done on their fiscal or calendar year, whichever they elect. And the franchise tax is on the net worth of the company, the value of the company, and the excise tax is basically an income tax. It's on those earnings that the company earns in Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Okay. So lots of folks operate in Tennessee on the assumption that Tennessee has no state income tax. From what you're saying, it sounds like this excise tax, as applies to LLCs, functions, at least in form, like an income tax.
It does. So there's not individual income tax in Tennessee, but if you've set up a business entity, then you will be required to pay that excise tax. Now, depending on the type of business that you do or your income, it may not be much.
Okay, we have a telephone call. Hello, this is Legal Bytes. You're on the radio with Trevor Atchley and Katie McGregor.
Hi there. I do have a quick question. Regarding liability and corporations, if I am a shareholder in a corporation, is there any situation to where I could be held personally liable?
Unfortunately, there are. It's a pretty limited circumstances, but in Tennessee, they call it piercing the corporate veil. So there are some instances when a shareholder can be held liable. So if that company is operating, for instance, as an alter ego, so if I personally set up my dog walking business, but I don't set up a separate corporate bank account and it's just my personal funds, I'm paying my personal bills out of business and I'm not keeping things separated, I may have that personal liability to where they can pierce the veil of the corporation and come after me personally. Another instance is if I do not wind up the business according to and provide the proper notices to my creditors, then
I think we lost the caller, but I assume she's still listening, so please continue with your answer.
So you can pierce the veil. And then the other instance is if I decide that I'm going to wind down my corporation, I'm not going to operate my dog walking business anymore, and I don't provide the notice to my creditors per the statute, notify the ones that I know about, and then also publish a notice to the extent that I receive any distributions or assets of the company, then that creditor can come after me for just to the extent of what I received from the company.
Okay, so it's you started talking there about a concept or known as dissolution, and so it sounds like the statute. I'm assuming all these business organizations that you file with the Secretary of State are all creatures of statute.
Yes, they are.
So these are business entities that the state legislature has authorized through statutory law.
Yes.
And we've talked a little bit about what's required, for example, to form an LLC. And the caller had mentioned corporations. We'll discuss that business entity momentarily, but you mentioned there the concept of dissolution. And does that apply to how you wind up a company?
It does. So like we talked about, the roadmap for the company, either a partnership agreement or an operating agreement, those typically lay out how a company will also dissolve, what it will do if it decides it's no longer going to operate the business. Now, if you don't have an operating agreement or a partnership agreement, then the statutes will control. You can, with your operating agreement, you can, in some cases, go make provisions other than what's required in the statute. But if you don't have that operating agreement, you have to follow the statute. And there are some states, Tennessee is not one of them, but a lot of states, if you have a limited liability company member that passes away, then that terminates the business, that ends the business. So those are all things to think about when you're setting up your business and your operating agreement if you want that business to continue after you lose a member.
Now, the caller mentioned a corporation, and that is another type of business entity. Can you explain to us what a corporation is?
Sure. A corporation is a business entity that's set up. It is governed by directors, and it's not members, but it's the people that hold the interest are shareholders. And it also offers the limited liability protection. It was the original corporate entity for that liability protection. And then the limited liability company came along that's kind of that partnership corporation hybrid. So it's operated by directors, and shareholders own membership in the interest.
Own an equity interest in the company.
Correct.
Now, let's say I want to set up a company, and I've considering just going out and by myself starting a sole proprietorship, or considering by myself or with a partner to form a general partnership. We've talked about an LLC, and how you start one, the fees associated with the filings. Could you explain to us how one would form a corporation?
Sure. With a corporation, again, you're going to file with the Tennessee Secretary of State, the entity that governs all those business entities and maintains their registration information. And you actually file a charter to form a corporation. So you'll file the corporate charter with the Secretary of State. The filing fee is $100. And again, that names out the type of corporation that you're going to have. You name the corporation, you name its registered agent, its principal address, its operating address, and then you'll also have to get a tax ID for your corporation. You'll have to register with the Tennessee Department of Revenue for those franchise and excise taxes, because they have to pay that too. And those are just the things that get you started. You also, for a corporation, have to have bylaws.
Okay, let's talk about that concept for a minute. So the equivalent, when we're talking about LLCs, to the articles of organization in the corporate context is a charter.
Yes.
And with the LLC, we said you don't have to have a written operating agreement, but we strongly advise that you have one. Mm-hmm. With a corporation, you mentioned it's mandatory to have bylaws. What are bylaws?
Bylaws are basically, again, the roadmap of the corporation. It's how the corporation operates, what types of control and ability the directors have, how shareholders are going to have their meetings, because shareholders have to have annual meetings, directors have to have annual meetings. So all these things for the operation of the corporation are laid out in those bylaws.
Some formalities there, director meetings, shareholder meetings. Does a corporation have more formalities to operate?
They do. Typically, they have more formalities. There's also, so a lot of people like to choose the LLC because it seems a little less strict in the requirements. However, it's important to maintain all those corporate formalities, whether you're operating an LLC or a corporation, whatever, you're still required to have annual meetings for a limited liability company and file those annual reports, keep records, your annual minutes, things like that, or actions by the members, or for a corporation, actions by the directors or shareholders. All those records are important to keep because it goes back to that, what we talked about, where you can pierce the veil. And a lot of that is if you're not following those corporate formalities. So if I just go out and I form a corporation for my dog walking business and I don't follow any of those corporate rules, then it's a lot easier for someone to come after me personally for any business liability.
Okay, you mentioned you can have a sole member LLC. Is there an equivalent sole shareholder corporation?
Well, you can have a sole shareholder corporation. There's no requirement that you have a certain number of shareholders for a corporation. In Tennessee, with a for-profit corporation, you are required to have at least one director that runs the corporation. And for a nonprofit corporation in Tennessee, you have to have at least 3 directors. So those are a few requirements for the corporations.
And is there any requirement for corporations regarding officers or agents who are authorized to act on behalf of the corporation?
Yes, the directors will elect those officers, president, secretary, like they would for a limited liability company.
Okay. So there's not really an equivalent member managed corporate formation.
No.
So it, just by its very nature, has to have a board of directors.
Correct.
It sounds like, though, the initial filing fee for a corporation can be significantly less than an LLC, particularly if you have lots of shareholders or members.
They can be less, but the one thing to consider, and a lot of people choose an LLC over a corporation, is the taxation of a corporation. So like we talked about with an LLC is taxed. You can elect to have it taxed as a corporation, but its default is as a partnership, which means that the profits and losses flow down to its members. With a corporation, the corporation's taxed on its earnings, its income, and then the shareholders are also taxed on those distributions. So a lot of people consider that a double taxation.
Is there any type of election for federal income tax purposes for a corporation to operate where its income passes through to the shareholders?
There's an election. A corporation and actually an LLC can elect to be treated as an S corp for taxation purposes. And an S corp is either a corporation or a limited liability company, but it's strict rules that the IRS has put in place in order to maintain that tax status for an S corp. So if you have an S corp, in order to be taxed as an S corp, you have to be a domestic corporation, so you cannot be a foreign corporation. Your shareholders are restricted in that you can only have 100.
Let me ask you a quick question. You mentioned a domestic corporation as opposed to a foreign corporation. Domestic meaning in Tennessee, or
domestic meaning in the U.S. for the S corp purpose,
for federal tax purposes?
Yes. So you have to be domestic. You also cannot have any more than 100 shareholders, and those shareholders can't be other businesses. So those shareholders have to be individuals. There are some trusts that are allowed as shareholders, and then also estates, certain trusts and estates, but for the most part, it's individuals. So you can't, in a typical corporation, you could have a partnership or another limited liability company, somebody as a shareholder, but with an S corp, in order to get that tax status, the pass-through tax status, you can't have those types of shareholders.
Well, that's very interesting. So you read it sometimes about these large business entities doing joint ventures, and 2 existing entities will form a new company for purposes of that joint venture. And in that circumstance, then, if the shareholders or corporate entities, they could not be an S corp.
Correct. They can't get that tax status.
So they would either have to elect to form as a regular corporation, I guess a C corp, or as an LLC.
Yes, those are their options.
And if they formed as an LLC, they can still elect to be taxed as a partnership and receive the pass-through in benefits as opposed to having to be taxed as a corporation.
Yes, I believe so.
And any restriction on the number for just a regular corporation, you mentioned there's a restriction on number of shareholders for an S corp. Are there any restrictions on number of shareholders for just a regular C corporation?
There aren't restrictions, but when you get, and I don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but you have to be careful with the SEC and making sure that you are not making public offerings when you are not a public company.
Oh,
so for investments, you have to be careful on how you bring in those investors.
And those types of for most listeners who are just starting their own business, and they're not planning on, they're going to be a closely held business, meaning that they're not going to be publicly traded, they wouldn't necessarily have to comply with all those regulations the SEC might impose on a publicly traded company.
Right. So with a closely held company that's small, they're managing it among themselves, and they're not selling these shares as investment opportunities to the public. They're not subject to all of those regulations.
Very interesting. And so we've talked about really, I guess, 4 main types of business organizations: a sole proprietorship, a general partnership, and with a general partnership, we also mentioned a limited partnership. We talked about LLCs and the various management structures, and corporations. Hopefully this has been very informative for our listeners.
I hope so.
And when clients come to see you, is there anything they need to bring with them as far as scheduling an appointment to set up an LLC or corporation?
They need to have just a general outline of what their business operation is going to be so that we can help them determine what their best option is as far as which entity to choose. And also if they're going to have any business partners, all of the partners, I recommend everybody comes in to meet with me when they're choosing their entity and starting to form a business.
Okay, very good. So hopefully been very informative for our listeners, and that is the end of our time for today. We will see you next week.